Greetings, book lovers everywhere. I'm Etran and welcome to Etran Talks. And today, I am so excited to be speaking with the ever so clever and talented author of thrilling novels such as the action-packed Double Vision adventure series, the spooky mystery novel Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, and her newest eerie, awesome mystery thriller that I was lucky enough to read and review, Daybreak on Raven Island. I'm so excited to be talking with the award-winning middle-grade mystery storyteller, author Fleur Bradley. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited to discuss everything books with you, and I'm sure everybody listening, we all want to know just a little bit about you and your books. So what can we expect when we read some of your novels?
Gosh, it's really my love for mysteries that is in every book. I just absolutely love mystery. I love a puzzle, and I try to put that love into all of my stories. And then there's a little bit of spooky side, the scary mystery element, which is also fun to do. So right now, if you're picking up a book that like Midnight at the Barclay Hotel or Daybreak on Raven Island, that's what you can expect, sort of fast-paced and fun, which is what I like to read. So I try to put that into my books.
So for those of you who don't know this, Fleur is not only an amazing storyteller, but also a big reading advocate. She spends a lot of time visiting libraries and classrooms, talking with kids, and fostering a love for everything books. And I know that she really is making a difference because I see all the wonderful notes Fleur posts from kids on social media. Fleur is touching kids' lives and making a difference. So now, without further ado, let's get into the next question. So, you have a new novel, Daybreak on Raven Island, coming out in August of 2022, and I absolutely loved the story. I even wrote a review on it. So for those who haven't read it yet or are eagerly waiting their pre-order to arrive, what can you share about the book without giving away any spoilers?
So Daybreak on Raven Island kind of started with Alcatraz. I was trying to come up after Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. I'm like, I want another scary setting, something that's really going to be a good invitation for lots of ghost stories and just a little bit scary in a Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. And I instantly thought of Alcatraz. So then what I like to do, when I find a setting that I really like, I try to come up with the fictional version of it. That way I can heighten all the elements that I love about a place. So Raven Island is a lot like Alcatraz. It has an abandoned prison. It has a morgue. It has a lighthouse. It has a cemetery and a ton of ghosts. And these three kids are going there on a field trip. And they missed a ferry off the island, which means they have to spend a night because of all the currents, so they can't make it off. And they end up having to solve the mystery of the island of a prison escape. That's a little bit inspired also by Alcatraz. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. I tried to put a little bit of my love for Alfred Hitchcock and some of that really slow burning kind of scary stuff in there. And the ravens, of course, are in there. So yeah, that's Daybreak on Raven Island in a nutshell.
Well, it's certainly such an entertaining nutshell, and I noticed that a lot of elements were a lot like Alcatraz. I haven't visited, but there were school field trips that I've heard of from other kids. I didn't go on them because I got carsick, but I heard that it was a really spooky experience, and Raven Island, it's certainly inspiring me to kind of dive into the spooky side of things. I've never really been a big spooky, eerie kind of middle grade lover, but after reading Daybreak on Raven Island and Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I certainly am now. And I was lucky enough to read Daybreak on Raven Island and as a electronic advanced reader's copy. And every word became a picture in my head. I was just so indulged in the story, and everything was so graphic and real. So I'm curious to know, what was the inspiration for Daybreak on Raven Island and really all the books that you write?
So you touch on an important part for me is that cinematic sort of feeling. Is that for me, when I start working on a story, I know that I'm getting somewhere when I start to really see it in my head. And I like to convey that in the book, and particularly for Daybreak on Raven Island, because one of the characters in the book, one of the three characters, really wants to make a scary movie. His name is Marvin, and he loves all the Twilight Zone and all the scary stuff. So I kind of framed it around what a movie script would feel like, and I paced it the same way. So that was a large part of the inspiration, where Midnight at the Barclay Hotel was very much about that classic Agatha Christie mystery. Daybreak on Raven Island is a lot about those classic scary movies, and pacing it a little bit similarly. So I'm glad that it's translating, because you never know as an author whether it's going to come off on the page. But I'm glad it's translating for readers. And the early reviews are great, which is always a relief.
Yeah, and they're a lot like scary movies, but they're also a lot different. Like the characters don't fall down at a certain point, like when a beast or whatever is coming after them. It's not like the obvious, it's not what a usual scary movie is like, but it is paced like that. So I'm glad that it has the aspects of a scary movie, but it's not like, oh my gosh, the protagonist is running to the shed because that's where they think they should hide, and they fall down. And they don't just go in the car and run away. There are a lot more elements, and it's not just the usual kind of scary book or movie, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going for. I'm to be honest with you, if I'm completely honest, growing up particularly, I didn't really like scary movies or anything scary. I just didn't, too scary was too much for me very quickly. So for this book, I definitely wanted it to feel more psychological, scary, not so much like super over the top, terrifying.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And it's definitely eerie, but it's also, like you said, psychological, and it's just real in a sense. Like it's not like a serial killer is coming up. It's kind of just trying to discover yourself, making new friends, and there are some ghosts going around, but that just adds to the mystique.
Yeah, and what you bring up is very true. I really wanted it to be as much a friendship book. So it's these three kids that really normally wouldn't be friends, but they learn by sharing and by working together and just being honest kind of along the way. That working together they can defeat the suspect in the murder mystery. So
yeah, and they certainly did in a very dramatic and entertaining fashion. And you have a number of books on the shelves, and they're all mysteries. As much experience writing adventure mysteries, has the writing process become easier with each book, or does each story have its own new challenges? And how long can it take usually for the story idea phase to the actual publication phase?
Yeah. So it is different for each book. Some things have gotten easier. I know my own process a little bit better. So I know how long I take and what I need to do to get to a good draft of a story, but there's lots of editing to be done. And one of the things I've learned is that the real writing isn't really the writing the first draft. It's all those drafts that you do to edit to make it a better story for the reader. It does depend. So for Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I had sort of half a concept, and it took several years for me to kind of mesh that with a setting. For Daybreak on Raven Island, everything came together a lot faster. I had Alcatraz, and I pretty quickly had sort of my format that's similar to Midnight at the Barclay Hotel with three kids and a mystery. So that one came along a lot faster than my other books. But each book is different, and each book has different challenges a lot of the time. For Daybreak on Raven Island, I really challenged myself to dig deeper when it came to character work, to really get to know my characters so they feel really alive. So that was a challenge for that book, is to make really sure that with all the action and all the stuff that's happening on the plot level, that there's lots of character work there as well. And I have a great editor, so I was very fortunate that she can help me a lot with that. So a lot of the work is in the editing, and that probably back and forth takes about 6 months or so, just to kind of put it into context.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting process. And you made the characters come alive. Come alive, I say, come alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of revising and editing, do you have any other writing projects in the works? Like Raven Island is going to come out pretty soon, but other than that, are you like in the revision process, or do you have just any ideas that you're kind of trying to picture in your head?
Yeah, so I have one middle grade scary story that I'm working on, that I'm revising right now. And I'm pretty far along with that, so that's exciting, but it's still kind of in that secret stage. And then I have a YA mystery that I've been writing as well. And that one also just still needs a lot of work. So this past summer, I've mostly been spending just revising and sort of being locked away in my office.
Yeah.
But that's fun. The fun part of the process as well as a writer is kind of nice to just sit in a corner and just work on your story and make it perfect. So
Yeah.
it's been a nice few months, these past few months.
Well, I cannot wait for your next middle grade scary story to come out. And maybe when your YA novel comes out, I'll be a YA reader. And
I
maybe
think
I'll just,
so, yeah.
I'm gonna keep on reading Fleur Bradley books.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot, and I really appreciate you talking to me today. It's super fun, and it's always nice to have, once you spend all that time in the office by yourself working on a story, it's then very exciting to take it out and see it out in the world and hear what people think. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. And the next question is, so I read that you believe mystery stories are a great way to get kids excited about reading, especially reluctant readers. So would you share why you think mystery novels are such a great genre to inspire kids to love books?
I think it's the puzzle. The puzzle is really fun to try to figure out, who did it. And mysteries are very plot driven that way and structured, in a way that I think is fun for a reader and for a reluctant reader. And adventure stories are similar that way, and scary stories are as well. But it's that plot-driven element, I think, where there's just always something happening, and that it feels a little bit like it could be a TV show or a movie, because I get that question a lot, where people are like, oh, when is it going to be a TV show? When is it going to be a movie? Because it is very cinematic. So you see it in your head the way you were talking about Daybreak on Raven Island, is that it feels like a movie in your head. And I think that works well for reluctant readers to keep them hooked and to kind of have it feel like a TV show almost.
Yeah, and even for avid readers, all the books are TV shows. Like all the books I read, especially mysteries, they kind of play out in your head, and they really could be a movie because they're so cinematic, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's just what I love about all your books. They really play out in your head, and especially Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, that murder mystery, I was hooked from the beginning. I read it for school book club, and if it wasn't assigned reading, I would have read it in an instant. And like the ending will shock you.
I hope so. I hope so. And that's fun too. I think that works well for reluctant readers as well, is that sort of plot twist where you're like, oh, and you go back and you're like, oh yeah, the clues were there all along, but I just didn't see it coming, and that's fun.
You can tell a lot from the cover of a book. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
And one pretty amazing thing I learned while preparing for our book talk is that you're actually a big literacy advocate. I read that not only do you visit libraries and classrooms and talk to kids, but you also offer classes to try and help motivate kids to love reading, especially reluctant readers. So I'm sure our listeners are curious to know, what makes someone a reluctant reader, and what do you do to help kids become willing readers?
So it's complicated sometimes. Sometimes there's just kids that don't enjoy reading very much, and sometimes they're kids that might have a reading impediment or a reading disability. My youngest daughter had that, and it was very difficult to pick up on, and we really didn't find out until she was being homeschooled. So I think sometimes there's something else going on, and sometimes it's just a kiddo who maybe doesn't like to read all that much. I think choice is a big deal. So a lot of the time you have a lot of assigned reading in school. And some of that assigned reading is not necessarily the type of reading that's going to appeal to a reluctant reader or to the average kid. Not everybody enjoys the same type of book, basically. So with mysteries, I think that can be a great something that really bridges the gap. And then choice, if there's an opportunity for a kid who maybe doesn't like to read to just pick something that they like, whatever it is, that's huge too. So I do a lot of talks for librarians and educators and teachers on reaching reluctant readers, and just some of the steps that you can take to try to make sure to keep kids engaged. Because if you can keep kids reading, they're more likely to be successful in high school and more likely to go to college or just be able to continue their education because so much relies on reading. And it's just great for the brain. And there's I could go on forever about all the great things with reading, but basically it's very important to keep kids reading. So I try to make that my mission when I go out and talk to people.
Those are such great tools, and I'll have to keep them in mind when I'm starting to become a literacy advocate, and I want to inspire kids to read. So it's all about choice in a sense. Like, I think maybe the assigned reading is boring. Well, to some kids it might be boring, so they don't like reading. But then, hey, you have Midnight at the Barclay Hotel or Daybreak on Raven Island, or maybe one of these amazing books in my very large bookshelves. And over here, I have a lot of bookshelves. Maybe it's one of these books. Like, and when you find the perfect novel for you, that is the greatest feeling in the world. And I'm so glad that you are writing books for kids who really need the mystery and the cinematic kind of novels because yeah, like you said, reading is so important in your education and also just in life. Like, if you love reading, like, if you're maybe, like, in your house, maybe you're quarantined during COVID or who knows when. If you have a book could be your best friend if you can't really see anybody at a certain time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your enthusiasm for reading and for books every day because it makes all the difference and it, keeps all of us going and trying to keep everybody reading, which is great.
Thank you. And so your newest novel, Daybreak on Raven Island, is just so good. I really have to say it. All of your books are so amazing. And my next question is one that some people have gotten a little bit mad about because it's so tricky, but it's one that I love asking. If you could be or meet any literary character, fictional or real, like it could be a character from your favorite book, maybe the author of that book, or a literacy advocate, or who knows? It could be anybody related to books. So if you could meet anybody or be anybody, fictional or real, related to books, who would it be and why?
Oh gosh, it's so tough. I thought about that question for a while. The BFG, so a giant would be really cool to meet. That was my favorite book when I was young, and like you said, it can be your book, can be your best friend, and that book was my best friend. And then Agatha Christie, because she wrote so many amazing books. I would love to just, have tea with her. That would be really, really amazing. So yeah. Lots of interesting people out there, but that would definitely be a person. She wrote so many books. I would love to just listen to her talk.
Yeah, that would be a wonderful experience. And I think that just meeting the BFG or really just meeting the BFG would be so great. I mean, they're the big friendly giant for a reason. Like exactly. I want to get maybe they're a giant, but if I can only I just want to hug them. Although I probably would only get to reach maybe their leg, but still.
Yes, and maybe have the BFG carry you away.
Yeah.
So you can have an adventure. That would be fun, huh?
That would be very fun. Mm-hmm. And my next question is, was there someone who inspired you to pursue writing or just really become a literacy advocate? A parent, teacher, author, or role model?
Yeah, it was my daughter did for a large extent. Just trying to keep her reading and just her ability or willingness to keep trying even though she didn't enjoy reading all that much. So that's very inspiring to me. And then my parents, I was always surrounded by books, and at the time I didn't realize how nice that was. It was just normal. But I think that that's so important for kids as well, to see their parents reading and for there were just always books in the house. We took trips to the library. And books were just a huge part of our everyday lives. Anytime anything needed to be fixed around a house, because this was the days before the internet, pretty much when I was younger, we would go to the library and get a book on it. So, so I still do that today, if I have to figure something out, I go to the library and I find a book. So I think that habit and that sort of fostering of reading from home is huge. And I feel very fortunate to have that in my background.
Libraries and librarians are the best.
They
And
are. They
my
are.
final question is where can we find your books? How can we keep following you and just learn what's next for Fleur Bradley?
Yeah, so you can find my books anywhere. The books are sold. I'm going on tour a little bit here in Colorado where I live, so that's going to be fun. And I'm doing a bunch of online events as well. You can find out more about me at ftbradley.com. And just the books are anywhere. So, and if you end up ordering the books and you'd like for me to send a signed book plate or a bookmark, just let me know. I am also on Twitter as at FT Bradley Author. So you can find me there.
Well, everybody, go there. And there's a lot of interesting stuff on her website. I found a lot of the information for this interview on her website. It's just so interesting, her whole story. And you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn to love Fleur's books as much as I do. And everybody, my guest today has been the one and only wonderful Fleur Bradley. She is the author of these amazing books, and who knows, maybe one of these novels, or maybe one of her other novels, maybe they'll become your favorite read. Just have a great day, stay safe, keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!